All right, it's Sunday, and this is my trading update for the week. I'm just going to do a real quick recap of the trades I have on right now. We're just kind of getting rolling in here in the new year, and I got a lot of really cool stuff that's starting to come together. The first thing is, let me just start off with a little story. So I got into options trading like early 2000s, and it was a program, I think it was called Optionetics, I think was the first introduction I had to it. And I used to listen to those tapes, the Optionetic tapes, on my way down to work. I used to work down in Santa Monica in Los Angeles as an editor. I was editing sizzle reels and trailers for the studios down there. And the traffic from where I was coming from was just awful. And it would take me like an hour or two to get there. So on the way there, I just had these tapes going, these Optionetic tapes that taught options and the basics and the strategies and all that. And that was my first introduction to options. And then I got involved with Sheridan Mentoring back then. I think he was sort of like the grandfather of retail options selling strategies. And there was a book too I got. I bought this book, and it was by these guys named the Random Walk Group. It was this book that wasn't very thick even. It was pretty thin. And the book was like, I forget, it was like 200 or 300 bucks. And it taught this strategy called One Strategy for All Markets, J.L. Lord. It was kind of mysterious who this guy was, this J.L. Lord. It was sort of like, no one really knew who he was. He was like a market maker. It was kind of this big mystery. And in this book, he taught the broken wing butterfly strategy. And I remember all my friends and coworkers at the time thought I was just totally insane for buying a book for $300. They had never heard of such a thing. But anyway, so right around that same time, I also got a job working up in the Bay Area for a group, doing their video editing and video producing. They were a group that was trying to get together it was kind of like what Zoom is, but back then it was like kind of a new concept, it was like a telephone, video phone system service network they were trying to get off the ground. And so every Monday morning, they would fly me up there. I would spend the week up there, and then on Friday nights I would come back. And there was this one time when I was sitting in the airport waiting for a flight, and I was reading this J.L. Lord book, One Strategy for All Markets. And there was a guy sitting next to me in the airport, the waiting area of the airport, kind of an older gentleman. He looked really distinguished. His face was like, the best way to describe his face, it was full of wisdom. And he looked like he was somebody important, maybe a movie actor, or he had this air about him. Even though he was dressed like with the cowboy hat, he has a big cowboy hat, and he was wearing cowboy boots, just kind of, regular clothes, farmer type clothes or cowboy clothes, nothing extravagant, just sort of, he's like dressed like an average, ordinary guy, but there was something about the way that he held himself that was different. And he noticed the book I was reading. He asked about it, and he seemed really interested. And so I kind of told him about, this strategy and how I was getting into options trading and the whole idea of selling options, covered calls and all that. And he seemed to follow right along. And I got the sense that he knew about this type of options trading as well. And then as the conversation went on, he started to talk about some other strategy, the options strategy. And I was still fairly new to options, and I couldn't really follow along with what he was saying, but he was basically describing a strategy where it was like you could put the trade on for no risk. And I just got into risk graphs and all that. I think we were using Option View back then. And as I listened to him, I was trying to think what is he talking about with no risk? Because I had been looking unsuccessfully for that. And as he continued to explain it, I just kind of like nodded, but it was pretty much all going over my head. But that conversation's always stuck out in my head because he knew what he was talking about, but I just couldn't really wrap my head around what he was trying to describe. Then the flights came and we parted ways. I went home, but that's always kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And I went on a pursuit of trying to find the perfect option strategy where you could initiate the trade above the zero line on the risk graph. That was my goal. And I have a headache just thinking about it now, like how much time I spent trying to devise all these different combinations and strategies of how to create an options trade, a risk-free options trade, a trade that starts off above the zero line on the risk graph. And I found a bunch of different ways to quickly tweak a trade into a position that's above the zero line, but I could never find one that started off above the zero line. And finally, I just kind of gave up. And I think the thing that made me give up was that back in LA, I was working as an editor on some reality shows, and I had the night shift. So I'd go in there at night and just work all night long editing these shows together. But when you're editing, we were using an Avid system, which is like this editing system. And when you get a lot of like effects kind of tweaked in and set, you need to render the thing. So it's like there's a render button, and you would press render, and it would sit there and render out all the changes you had made. So you could actually view it real time, see what it looked like. And to render a section, it could take anywhere from like 15 minutes to, maybe an hour. So whenever you rendered, you're kind of like just sitting there not doing much, waiting for the thing to render. So I had my laptop there off to the side, and I would sit there, I would hit render, and it would start to do this work, and then I would turn to my laptop and I would do back tests like on Option View, and I would try to figure out how to get this dang option trade that starts off above the zero line. And I could never figure it out. And finally I just wrote it off as it was impossible. There's no such thing. And the unfortunate thing about that story is that one night when I was doing that, I fell asleep during one of those render sessions while I was on my laptop, doing back tests, and the producer walked in, and my boss came in, and here I was asleep in front of my laptop with the options risk graph on the screen, and the thing had already rendered, so it looked to him like I was just like doing something else. I wasn't doing my job. I was just sitting over to the side doing some trading thing, and I never worked there again. I also never came up with a strategy that could start off above the zero line. But this weekend, I got an email from a friend of mine named Conrad, and he forwarded me this strategy and asked if I had ever heard of it before. And as I looked at it, it looked like an options trade that you could initiate that was above the zero line, like a real risk-free position from the beginning. And as I was sitting there and seeing how it was constructed, it all came back, that guy from the airport way back then, that this was the strategy that he was talking about. And I was too early on in my options trading career, quote unquote career, to really be able to see exactly what he was saying, but it all came back. And this was the trade that he was referring to, that he was trying to explain to me. And so the last 24 hours or so, I've just been kind of like looking at this thing and back testing it and studying it from every angle that I can. And it looks to be a really legit thing. Now, after doing this for 20 years, I know that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I also know, the saying, there's no free lunch in the stock market. But over the last 24 hours or so, I have enough data, if you want to call it that, or just enough time spent studying this thing that seems to be potentially real, where we can initiate trades that are potentially really truly risk-free from initiation, that you can start off and they're risk-free. And that, combined with what that guy back in the airport was trying to explain to me, has me creating this new project I'm going to do starting this week, where I'm going to actually try to take these trades live with real money in the market and see if it's for real. And as always, I'll document and record the whole thing and put them up on YouTube. So if you're interested, you can come along with me for the ride here. So again, this is sort of a experiment. I mean, it seems to be legit. Then again, the market's closed right now, so maybe some of the pricing that I'm seeing could be off. But when I back test it, like in OptionNet Explorer, I'm seeing the same thing, which validates it that this is a real thing. And so that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm going to call this strategy. I'm going to either name it after the guy who emailed me this weekend and showed it to me, or I may name it after that guy who I met in the airport way back when, who was trying to explain it for me. I just couldn't understand it. So right now I'm going to call it the OG strategy, because that guy I kind of consider as the OG. What I imagine that guy was just some very wealthy person who wasn't flaunting it. You couldn't really tell by the way he dressed. He wasn't trying to show off, or he wasn't flashy. He was just kind of a down-to-earth guy who had a lot of wealth and a lot of wisdom. And so I kind of think of him as the OG. So anyway, that's the first thing. And so if you'd like to follow along with me on this, again, I don't know how this is going to turn out. The whole thing could just become a farce, a fiasco, but I do have enough experience after 20 years to sort of be able to gauge whether something's potentially legit or not, and if it's worth pursuing. And this definitely falls in the column of this is potentially legit. So anyway, if you'd like to follow me along with this, just look for the link in the description below. And I'll also be creating videos. It'll become a new video project for me this month, as we'll put on some of these trades and see if it's the real deal or not. So just see the link in the description of this video. Go over there and I'll be sure to include you in that journey. So now the other thing that we got, let's just do kind of a recap for the week where we're at. The other thing that we have been doing is our Zero DTE project, where starting on December 6th, I have been trading one Zero DTE strategy, and every trading day of the week, and I've been recording it and documenting it. You can go back to my YouTube channel. You can see all of them. I have the entire sessions in there, and you don't have to watch the entire session because some of them are pretty long. But I wanted to include the entire session just so you could see exactly from start to finish how the trades turned out. And this has been really impressive. I'm impressed how this has turned out. We're over 100% profit in a little over a month's time now. Here's the Excel sheet that I'm keeping on it. You can see that we're at a total of $535 profits made on 420. 420 was ever the most at risk. And as I started out the project, I was risking my own money, my own $420. But at this point, now we're just playing with house money or stock market money. So no more of my personal money is at risk. I've taken that off the table. I'm playing just with the money that I've made through this first month. And the goal is to see how fast I can scale it up risk-free, because I'm not using my own money. This is all stock market money. And I'm just documenting the whole thing on that. And when you look at these numbers, you may kind of scoff and laugh and say, well, this is $50 a day, big deal. What's $50 a day going to do? But the whole idea behind this is to first remove all our risk from the project, which I've done. So I have no more personal money involved. But the other thing is the scaling. So if I'm making $50 a day on a good trade, That's potentially, if I can scale up to 5 contracts, that's, well, let's say 50 times 5 contracts, that's $250 a day, right? If I scale it to 10 contracts, that's $500 a day. And there it starts to get significant. That just takes on a whole new way of looking at it. $500 a day, and these are like maybe 1 to 2 hour trades usually. Again, so this is with no more money. So this is risk-free at this point. It's just stock market money that we're using. But if I can scale this up to even $250 a day, that's significant. And the sky's the limit. So that's this project that I'm working on that I'm excited about. And to follow along with these with me, just make sure you're subscribed to my channel or go over to my website and join me there. I'll leave a link to my website in the description below. Just go over there, sign up for my free email newsletter. And then as soon as you do that, you'll get a welcome email from me. Just reply back to that welcome email and I'll make sure that you're on the list for this project as well. So that's the second thing. The third thing is our Vince trade is going swimmingly well. The Vince trade is the micro futures day trading strategy where we have a live trading room that we get in every trading day. We go in there and we trade the Vince strategy. That's what I'm calling it, the Vince strategy. And it's just a super simple, fun micro futures day trading strategy that is doing really well. And the bigger idea is that we're doing it with the prop accounts. So we're trading other people's money. We're not trading our own money. So our own money is not at risk. We're trading the prop accounts and we're trading multiple accounts within the prop account. So like Apex is a prop account and a prop account is just a company who will actually let you trade with their money if you can prove that you can be profitable. So with Apex allows you to have 20 accounts at once. And what's really cool is that you can like link them all up. So they're all linked together. So you just make trades in one account only. You're not sitting there trying to, go back and forth between 20 accounts. That would be super stressful. Instead, you just trade one account and it's replicated across all 20 accounts. And so for example, and if you look at my videos from this last week, just check out some of the videos I made this last week and you can see real live examples of this in action. But let's just say we make $50 a day in one of these prop accounts. So we're not even risking our own money. We're using their money. And the Vince trade is a strategy that you can utilize to, I think it's very simple to make $50 in a day. So let's just say we make $50 in a day in one account, but remember that it's all replicated across 20 accounts. So we say times 20 accounts, that's $1,000 a day. Spending a couple hours in the morning to do this trade and you're not even risking your own money. So this is something that I'm super excited about. I've gotten my son involved in this, and I'm trying to preach this from the mountaintops or the rooftops, that I think that there's a great opportunity here, and it just seemed like a really great big idea opportunity right now that if you're interested in, just reach out to me and say, how can I learn more about the Vince trade? And I'll hook you up with that. The last thing I want to do today is take a look at my big boy trade that I have on. Over the New Year's, I shut everything down. I closed all my positions. And then over the last couple of weeks here, the new year, I've been slowly starting to reopen them back up, get back in the groove of things. And I'm campaigning a lot of these strategies, which means I'll put on one a week. And then, once we reach like 6, 7, 8 weeks, I just start to have these stock market paychecks coming in every week. So I put my first one on this week, my big boy trade, and let's take a quick look at that and see where we're at. Now I consider this trade to be my main bread and butter trade. This is kind of like my main money maker right now. And again, we just put this first one on this week. And let's just take a quick look at this. We're up about $120. These usually take around 20 days to come in. Sometimes they'll pop in faster. Sometimes they'll linger a little longer. But this is just the quick update on that trade. So I got my first one on. I'll be opening another one this week, as well as first money glitch trades of the new year. So if you'd like to follow along with me on any of these trades, just make sure to subscribe below. Just hit that subscribe button. And even better, go over to my website, join my free email newsletter. I'll leave a link to my website in the description below. Head on over there, sign up for my free email newsletter. And as soon as you do that, you'll get a welcome email from me. Just reply back to that welcome email and I'll reply back and we'll go from there. All right, that's it for this weekend. See you next time.